Hello! I thought I would start my week 4 vlog of 2020 NaNoWriMo by talking a little bit about my week 3 vlog. Because apparently I just got an email from YouTube that says that my week 3 vlog is blocked in the UK because I used 10 seconds of muted footage of the opening of His Dark Materials in my video. I mean, sheesh, UK. BBC, didn't they put it on the YouTube page, like the entire intro with sound? Why are you getting on my case? So anyway, on the extreme off chance that somebody from the UK is attempting to watch that video and it isn't working, that's a brief explanation for you. Okay. In other news, I thought I would take my sense of flailing rejection in a different direction, and recently this afternoon, I'm filming this on Sunday, I recorded an alto section of a Hebrew song for my synagogue flash choir. And then I had to listen to it basically before I would send it off, and the whole point is that everybody's sending their own parts, and then the computer whizzes will, meld them all together into one harmonic song. We actually did this once before several months ago with another song. But I have to say, you can tell, I think, from my part that I am incredibly rusty when it comes to singing. I was never made to be a soloist. I've always been a chorus girl. That's always been what I've been, but it could be better. And also I had to do all of the learning of this on my own because we didn't have any in-person practices, and I missed the Zoom practice. So anyway, there's that. I haven't done any professional singing in a long time, although I used to as a kid, and I miss those days, and I miss feeling better about my voice, but I wanted to grab on to the chance to participate in something, in a community activity with my synagogue, and I've always done flash choir with them, so I decided to go ahead and give this a try.
Luna Cullen says, I'm super stuck and I'm struggling to start my next chapter. I totally understand that. I think there are parts in the story where, what is it you call it, China? The muggy middle? Yeah, and for me, endings of chapters can sometimes feel like that. But, I think one of those great quotes by Charlie Jane Anders that I really like is sometimes I think she skips ahead to scenes that she's more interested in writing and then just goes back and slices it together later, so.
Yep, I do that all the time. I'm constantly jumping around and what do I feel inspired by? What sounds really fun to do today?
Yeah. Seems more important to write than to think for hours.
Yeah, no, that momentum, it's good to keep up that momentum, and I mean, sometimes I'll come to a chapter that just seems really difficult for some reason, maybe it's the characters have to have a really difficult conversation, or it's a fight chapter where I have to really think about it. And a lot of times in my first drafts, I'll just put a bullet point, have them talk about this thing, and then I just pretend that I've written that chapter and move on and come back to it later. Because it's easier to write those chapters in the second draft. You've already written the draft, you feel like you've accomplished something, and you have some of that momentum built up. So I do that all the time.
Yeah, I do that too. I write a paragraph about what I want it to feel like when someone's reading this or something like that, and then I'm just I'm going to ignore this until maybe draft 3.
Yeah. Yes, indeed. I will also say to the person who said they were specifically having trouble starting the next chapter, one thing because I feel like the beginnings of chapters are really, really hard, especially if you're moving from, in the last scene your characters were here and now you're maybe in a new place or a new time, and it can be hard to just transition to something brand new. And so when I'm having that problem, I will often start with description and just think, let's just describe the space that we're in. and just think about that and not really think about where the plot is heading or what the characters are talking about. And I find that that helps me kind of anchor myself back into the story and get some words down, which then, can help move things forward.
If you see here the subject line of the email I sent myself on Friday for my weekend plans, enough said, I think. Current mood after finishing NaNoWriMo weekend boot camp. I'm not sure why she's sitting on it like this. This is an igloo-shaped cat covering, cat bed, but she decided to smush down the top of it and just lay out in the open. But hey, whatever works, right? So, no Havruta study for me tonight. Havruta study, as I've mentioned in my other Nano vlogs, is a Jewish practice of studying the texts with a partner. And this month I made the incredibly smart decision to join an initiative run by my local JCC. I mean, in my defense, it's something I've wanted to try for a while, and it just happened to be starting up in November as like a test run, so I don't know. But anyway, for the last couple of weeks I've been meeting through Zoom with my partner, but she canceled today because she's helping her mom move. The problem is that basically for the rest of the month, I don't really want to be meeting anymore either, especially next Monday for certain reasons regarding the deadline that I'm always, desperately racing toward on that day. So it's a little dicey, I think, as we're trying to figure out when to meet next. We're technically supposed to be wrapping up in, mid-January, and we're hoping, to do a couple of double sessions where we talk about 2 lessons in one. I'm really hoping maybe we could just ignore the rest of November and move into December, and I would be happy to do double the work then. This is why you don't do social things in November, Self, and nothing that isn't, nano related anyway, because the pressure is just too much. I mean, honestly, I'm just having enough trouble as it is, going to work and coming home and getting to my writing, getting this computer on. I'm just decked out in pajamas and my blanket and trying to make this as soothing as possible as I, push through the words. I don't need any other distractions. So I guess we'll see how it goes. We're just emailing, and I guess I'm really hoping that maybe we can just be done for November and save the rest for December and January. Let's hope. I thought I'd take this moment to go ahead and comment on the official word count so far of my fantasy project, which shows off quite nicely that I'm a rebel because it doesn't, match the count below. I actually started writing this year with the beginning of Act 2, and I'm still in the first part of Act 2. But altogether, what I've written starting with Act 1 is over 37,000 words, which makes this the longest piece of fiction I've ever written, which is another weird thing I think to say about Nano and speaks to my rebelliousness, because I've never actually written one full project that is 50,000 words. I've done, bits and pieces of different things. The longest thing I've written so far is my literary novella, which is 35,000 words in total, rather than, less than half of it, which is what this is. I mean, that being said, everything I've written so far this year, I know I'm going to take out, especially the chapter that I have behind me with all of the capital letters, because that's not even a chapter. I realized that I didn't have the know-how really to write it yet, so I basically did this rambling outline of what I wanted to put in that chapter and what I wanted to focus on, but I didn't really have the time or the skill or the whatever yet to actually write it in the here and now. But even all of my other chapters, which are more conventional chapters, the writing is just so poor that it feels like what I've done this year is like I've created a receptionist for my novel, and the receptionist is basically saying, please hold for emotional pathos and convincing scene setting. Even that saying alone probably is some of the best writing I've done so far this year. So that's saying something. But still, I feel like this is a milestone that I've written or outlined or rambled this much of what is actually turning into a novel, my first real, actual live novel. So I figured it bore a moment of reflection.
Hello, how are you guys doing? I'm so excited to be here. Alright, I can see that this stream is absolutely bleak myself. Alright, how are you guys doing? I'm super excited to be here. Let me quickly introduce myself. I am Luana. On the website I'm known as Pokerface. I'm the municipal liaison from South Africa elsewhere. So the fun thing about my region is that we've always been digital because we're just like the rest of South Africa, like the biggest cities, Pretoria, Johannesburg, and Cape Town. They have their own regions, and everything else is kind of coming in here. Now I should mention there's also Port Elizabeth, who has their own region, and I think Grahamstown, though that's a very small kind of town, more than a city. They have their own region as well. For everyone here who is not familiar with National Novel Writing Month, let me quickly give you a rundown of what this is like. So every November, us like brave people, crazy people, I don't know what we're supposed to call each other, but we dare each other to write a novel in 30 days. That's 50,000 words. So I have been doing this, I think, it must be more than 10 years now. I remember my friend, she introduced me to it when I was 16. I think both is good too. I think we are brave, crazy people. You know, Durban almost got their own region, but we were always very small. Like, I'm from Durban, but we were always kind of too small. Like, there were 4 regulars maybe, and the rest of us is, yeah, we were just like from elsewhere. So when this year the whole National Novel Writing Month thing went into like all digital, we were like, oh cool, we've done that anyway, always, ever. So we've always had our own kind of space where we were hanging out and doing virtual write-ins. But it's really cool to see that this year we're kind of doing it on a more like streaming platform. And yes, I'm excited to be here. So how have you guys been doing? This is the last effort that we're putting into. We have 5 days left. I'm at 45,000. I was hoping I'd be finished by now. But yeah, I kind of slowed down a little bit. So I'm not there yet when it comes to finishing up. I hope I'm doing it soon. I'm kind of feeling very stuck. So let's maybe dedicate this hour to fixing our plots.
Just finished reading Home by Toni Morrison, her penultimate novel, her 10th out of 11, written in her lifetime. This one returns to a male narrator, like the Song of Solomon, and I think Morrison uses male narrators to be less, well, not lyrical, but sort of metaphorical and allegorical. I think there's less of that, and she's more to the point. I think maybe the most allegorical thing that happened was like a prologue in the beginning where her narrator Frank and his young sister C witness this act of brutality as children that they don't really understand until the very end, when they ask the old people of their hometown to explain it to them. and it goes into your usual sort of violence against African Americans. A lot of that goes back and forth in this book that takes place largely in the 50s. Frank is in fact a veteran of the Korean War and is accordingly treated horribly by white people who don't want to see him as a veteran. It opens up with him in a hospital, and he's not sure exactly how he got there, and when he seeks help from a local reverend, they talk about how, the poor people go to the hospital basically to become scientific experiments for the benefit of the health of the rich. And that is very foreshadowing of the trouble that C finds herself in and how and why Frank returns home to rescue her. Their home is kind of a place of horrors. They came to the home where they grew up because they were sort of traced out by a racist pogrom from their old home, and then they lived with their grandfather and step-grandmother and their indifferent parents, and the step-grandmother in particular was very mean. And I think it drove both of them away from home in different ways, C and Frank, and neither of them do necessarily all that well away from home. They're both scarred by their experiences. Frank in particular has something happen, or he does something in the Korean War that I guess I would agree that with one of the reviews I've read that I don't think Morrison really touched upon all that well. But in general, it's her usual sort of taut look at horrors of the past, but also the ways that people come together in love. I don't know if it has to be more grand and sweeping than that. Like, you could run the risk of being too pat and moralizing, whereas with this you can't be as much, but you can sort of touch on the things that people experience and the meaning of home and that. But I will be sitting with this before I write an official Goodreads review. Speaking of home, I just returned from my own childhood home for Thanksgiving. It was a much quieter, smaller affair than usual because of COVID. My father usually delights in inviting like a couple dozen people to the house for Thanksgiving, but this year it was just the immediate family, my sister and my brother-in-law, niece and nephew, and my parents, and me, and 2 dogs from my sister. My sister just got a new one, and then she had an older one as well. And we went traipsing down to the stream behind our house for the first time in decades with those 2 dogs, and that was fun. And otherwise, I guess it was very much more low-key Thanksgiving than usual, but a nice one with all of those touches of nostalgia from home. And even the Macy's Day Parade, which surprisingly ran. Apparently a little bit different this year than most, although, when you're watching from the TV, it doesn't actually look all that different, but it looked a little different. You could tell there were fewer people by some, and that they'd pre-recorded parts. I also really like that they gave space, if they're going to have a parade, they gave space to some of the groups that would have marched in other New York parades that were canceled earlier in the year. So that was nice. A more homey than corporate feel, I think. So anyway, all in all, I guess it was a really nice time, and hopefully will provide inspiration for me as I go forward into the final countdown of Nano 2020. We'll see.